right, guys, we're recording. Thanks so much for coming on. We've got Frank DeBenedetto, founder of audIT here, and Rob Rae, Senior VP of Business Development at Datto. Needs no introduction. Thanks for coming on, Rob. I really, really appreciate you.
Oh, my pleasure, and thanks for having me. I much appreciate it.
We'll give you a little cheers. It's the end of the day as we're recording this, so
yeah. Cheers, guys. Stay healthy.
My coffee mug, so.
So, Rob, I'm going to kind of kick things off. I wanted to kind of, here's the deal. We're talking about, things that are going on today. It's April 8th as we're recording this. We really want to help MSPs out there and our clients and the MSP community to get through this, to get through the craziness and get out on the other side of this safe and profitable. So to start off with, I just want to kind of check in with you. How are you doing personally? And, how's Datto doing? I'd love to hear like how Datto adjusted to this as one of the larger companies in the channel.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. First of all, everybody that I know, family, friends, staff, everybody's great. So, awesome. Yeah, no issues, no concerns. We're based out of Connecticut, it's very close to where you are, Frank. So, we tend to be up here in the Northeast, tend to be a little bit more of a hot spot than anywhere else around this, but. I am now in week 4 of working from my home office. And as you guys know, I spend probably about 85% of my life on the road, and I'm used to sitting in hotels and airplanes and all those wonderful things, which I complained about a lot at the time, and I will never complain about ever again after spending 4 weeks at home and not seeing a hotel or a lobby bar or an airplane. I would be super happy. I made the comment the other day, if I had a seat on an airplane in row 35, middle seat, I'd be ecstatic right now. So
it's not bad, right?
It's not bad, right? Even on a Southwest flight, I'd be super happy.
Oh my God.
So fortunately, my wife and I actually renovated our house probably about a year ago, finished about 6 months ago. And in the reno, she built me an office. And I'm like, I'm always on the road. I don't need it. Thank God she built it for me because it has come in super handy through this. But from a business perspective, obviously Datto 100% MSP focused, and being that our core product is disaster recovery, right, which is the backup disaster recovery. We started actually thinking and heading into the new year about what if something bad happened and we needed to have a remote workforce, meaning. Like our head office and where most of our tech support is in Norwalk, Connecticut. What if something happened in Norwalk, Connecticut? Do we have the ability to get our Norwalk, Connecticut techs, mostly tech support, up and going so that they have the ability to help our partners? And then, we started rolling that out through, because we've got tech support in the UK, we've got staff in Australia, we've got staff in Rochester, New York. So we started rolling this out. Funny enough, you fast forward, 2 months later, and we're all working from home. So it was already stuff that we had kind of already been testing and working with, and kind of understood some of our limitations. So to be honest, it's been relatively smooth. I haven't heard, and I try to keep, part of my job is to keep a pulse of what's going on with the MSPs, and not a lot of complaints about tech support. Then again, our calls are down significantly because I think a lot of MSPs are focused on what's in front of them right now, which tends to be, how do I mobilize my end user workforce so that they can work from home and all the things that are there. So, for us, it's kind of like, we're here when you need us. And that has worked fairly well for us. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear you guys are safe. Yeah, I'm about 30 miles north of you in Southbury, up 84.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a little scary up here, but we're getting through. Hopefully we're flattening the curve. Yeah, I wanted to kind of, and the reason why Frank is on here, because Frank has a kind of prediction that he's been talking about when it comes to cloud and BCDR, and I want to kind of punt it over to you to talk about the direction with Rob, direction of selling as you see it, Frank.
Yeah. So. I think, I'm in a dual role here, right? So, I am an MSP, I'm an active MSP, so I'm living through this. I think that, I made some pretty good decisions over the last 8 years, which put us, Two River Tech in a good spot right now. And then, also it created audIT, which made it easier for me to sell those solutions. That put me in that good spot. So one thing I want to talk to you about, Rob, was kind of the evolution, like what we've seen in the MSP channel, because like I remember if we go back, let's say 10 years ago, you were probably with Level then, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I had just started with Robin Robbins. And I remember as you would walk the hallway, like the vendors, RMM was all the rage back then, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think Lab Tech had just popped up. You were with Level, Kaseya was out there. I think I used a product called Hound Dog at the time, which
I remember.
you remember Hound Dog Technologies?
Yeah.
I actually did. I actually filmed the testimonial for them, and then they got acquired.
DFI, I think, acquired them.
Yeah, DFI did, yeah.
Yeah,
And
now SolarWinds.
SolarWinds, yeah. So it's rolled all the way up. But what was interesting was I remember that. And then I think it went from there, and I can't remember if BDR was first or if it was cloud. I think it was BDR.
Yeah.
And you can walk down the hallway. Everybody's like, "What BDR? BDR? What did you use?" I remember Chartech, was leading the charge on the BDR at the time, and so you had the business continuity piece there. Then you had cloud, right? Cloud popped up, and to me, it seemed like cloud came and went the fastest of all the shiny objects. And I think I'll tell you we can get into some of the reasons why I think that happened. I think it had to do with profitability, and a lot of MSPs couldn't figure out a way or didn't think you could make money if you shifted to cloud. Mm-hmm. And then cybersecurity came in like hot and heavy, and that's what everybody's been focused on. But what's really interesting right now is cybersecurity is kind of quiet. I mean, people are reminding you, hey, you got people working from home, so be careful, don't lose sight of that. But I almost think we lost sight a little bit of the BCDR side of things, right? Because I'm watching a lot of my peer MSPs right now scrambling to get their folks mobilized and working from home. And suddenly there's a lot of companies saying, hey, like the solution didn't really work that we had. Like we had to do a lot of shifting around of the train tracks to get back working again. So just about your thoughts on that, the evolution of it and what you think, because you're in the BCDR, vertical here. And, I've always appreciated that because I think that's really of paramount importance. People don't care about their AV so much if they can't work or can't get to their computer. So thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that it's pretty easy to say, and probably the conclusion is easy to draw, that I think from a backup perspective, at least when I joined, when I moved out of the RMM space and into the backup space, I remember having conversations way back early in the day when Datto was trying to recruit me, and they were like, backup company, and there were so many backup companies that I remember. This was in 2013 when I joined Datto, and they started getting really serious about bringing me on board, and I'm like, there's a million backup companies. Why would I want to work for a backup company? I want something that's kind of new and edgy that, people aren't thinking about. Like you said, cloud and now cybersecurity and all that. But then the way backup, first of all, it was an MSP that kind of grabbed me by the head and said, like, you're missing the boat here. Backup is like, everybody needs it. It is something that 100% of end users need. RMM is not something 100% of end users need or want or are willing to pay for. So you're kind of missing the point that there's a million backup companies because there's 10 million opportunities. So it's like, okay, that kind of makes a lot of sense. That being said, I think there was a lot of maturity that actually happened during that time between, if you look at the organizations like Datto, for example, even shorter than that, like if I look at our organization when I joined almost 7 years ago, the maturity level of the product, the commoditization of the price, the ability for the MSPs to be able to articulate their difference between traditional backup versus continuity, which was, been the message that everybody has been saying and singing about and trying to explain the price point to end users. I think, it's a matured conversation. By no means is it saturated. And I say that because our backup business still continues to grow record rates month over month, even through COVID here. We're having a phenomenal time. And I know the other backup companies are the same. So by no means does this mean that we've kind of matured on the backup side and now we're heading into cloud or heading into cybersecurity. It's just, it seems to be a consistent tick up. what I think from our perspective, because we're in the technology realms, I think everybody's just kind of always looking for something new, new to talk about, to learn about, those kinds of things, which is why we have conversations about 5G and Internet of Things and even drone technology at some of the conferences that we go to, because we're always just kind of looking for the next shiny thing. Because as techs, and I'm by no means technical in any way, but as techs, I think we just look for the next cool thing to talk about. Backup's not cool to talk about. It's needed, it's necessary, and everybody must have it. But that conversation's been had and is continuing to be had. It's just not as sexy as it once was. So then you think about cloud and that transition to cloud, and I think cloud has been around for a long time. And I think it was kind of like, maybe it was Microsoft that just did a really good ad campaign and kind of defined cloud and called it cloud. Whereas before, like, it's always existed. So for us, it was kind of like, yeah, we've been doing this for 10 plus years. Now you're just kind of rebranding it, putting a new coat of paint on it and trying to sell it as something new. Like Office 365, for example. I mean, Hotmail is a cloud application. How long have we had Hotmail accounts, right? And so it's just kind of like, yeah, okay, it's defining it. End users are getting interested in it, and maybe by defining it as cloud, simplified the message. Cybersecurity, though, is something that's real and kind of came on with a kind of a jolt. And I was telling a story back in the day, but in September of 2017, I worked for Datto, and I still work for Datto. But when working for Datto, I remember in September 2017, I saw an ad, 2014, September 2014, I saw an article on CNN about ransomware. And I'm thinking, wow, this is pretty scary. Like there's software that can be deployed that, can hold you hostage, and you have to pay money in order to get your system back. And I remember calling our tech support team and saying, hey, how many of you guys have seen this ransomware or heard of this ransomware? And all of them are like, you're crazy. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. Probably about a month later, like literally within 30 days, it just came on, kind of like this pandemic. It just all of a sudden happened where we're doing our 1,000th restore because of ransomware. And it now all of a sudden is like this newest, biggest thing where all of a sudden, security. Now hackers have figured out a way to make money by delivering malware instead of just causing havoc. So now all of a sudden it starts evolving into dark web and identity theft and passwords and all these types of different things where people have figured out a way to commoditize this, make money with this, to the point where everybody's vulnerable, everybody's under attack. Most vulnerable people, of course, being SMBs. So the cybersecurity thing is a big deal. This whole work from home movement, as a result of COVID, awesome that we were able to get everybody pretty much mobilized. And I wrote a blog recently. It was kind of a good news blog, like a silver lining blog, as to what's the good news out of COVID for the channel. And one of those things is, like, think about the tens of thousands of businesses that MSPs have saved because they've been able to mobilize them and to work from home, and so that these end users can continue to serve their customers. So how many jobs have they saved? How many, incomes, mortgage payments, all those things have MSPs saved because of the ability to rapidly deploy, work with, change technology. And I know even to this day, there's still MSPs scrambling around looking for product in order to deploy to get end users working from home. But then what we did was we kind of left a window open, and that's when the security story starts coming back. Like, we were just starting to get our security story together. And I mean, the channel as a whole, getting our security story together, because MSPs were under attack, and 2FA was now standardized for things like RMM, and we were having better, more intelligent conversations about malware with the end users. Boom. Now everybody's at home using their personal Wi-Fi networks, the same things that the kids are TikToking on and all this. And now all of a sudden it's like, God, we're right back to square one. So I think that's going to be a bigger conversation and kind of a different and kind of pivoted conversation. Because if I came to you 3 months ago and said, let's talk about security on home networks, you guys would have gone, get out of here. What are we talking about? Now, like, we've kind of closed the front door, but left a window open,
Yep. And that kind of brings me to the next thought is that, we know that we're sitting on, we're riding this swelling wave now. There's going to be a sales revolution here, I think, and a big opportunity for MSPs. You made a great point. Many MSPs have done great work. I know that, Two River Tech, we're not out there saving lives, but we are keeping a lot of our clients' businesses afloat and in a good way. And I know that we got some really nice testimonials. I had one client sent, one of our techs a bottle of alcohol to say thanks. He sent me some masks. His father's a doctor. A couple other clients wrote some really nice emails. One said, "Hey, you're the only bill we're paying right now. Like, we really appreciate your technology." So, I wouldn't put it out there. I think that that's it's an inappropriate time to display that type of thing. I think later on down the line. But talk to us a little bit about what you view as this the sales opportunity that's swelling, because I think some MSPs are a little down now. Others are viewing this as, we're going to have a great opportunity and almost feel guilty about it. Thoughts there?
Well, okay, so a couple different things, and I'll come back to the sales conversation. One of the things that I'm trying to do is, and I think it's super important that we do this throughout this, and call me naive or I'm not. I think we all understand that we're going through something that's unprecedented. I think that there is going to be fallout and we're going to lose business. I think that it's safe to say that every MSP is going to lose a percentage of end users. What that percentage is, let's hope it's low. And I think there are MSPs that are going to go out of business. I just think that, none of us wanted this or asked for this, and nobody's looking at this going, this is a great thing for us. That being said, I'm an eternal optimist. Otherwise, my mind would blow up and I would head into massive states of depression. So I'm always trying to silver line everything. And I look at like just the three examples that you gave there. I want to celebrate those things, but you're absolutely right. And I hear this not just from you, but I hear it from MSPs and partners all the time, because again, I'm reaching out to our partners going, hey, what's going on? And I'm hearing stories like that. As much as I'm hearing the bad stuff, I'm also hearing great stories like that. Yeah. And you think about 10 years ago during the economic burst in 08, we would never be patted on the back for the job that we're doing back then. Instead, we were scrambling to get our bills paid. Y2K was more our fault that these things were happening, as opposed to, hey, you're going to save us. The .com bust, again, was our fault because we're techs and we said that this was the second coming of Christ, and it turns out it wasn't, and the market crashed, and that was our fault. This is the kind of the first moment where the channel and MSPs in particular have had a chance to shine. I want to celebrate that, and I want to start telling those stories. But it's like you said, that the MSPs that I'm talking to don't want to pat themselves on the back yet. And I understand why, and it tends to be because we tend not to want to be in the spotlight. I feel like I'm in the spotlight now with the sun coming. Sorry.
Mine's coming too.
It's the time of day. It just, I don't have a halo or anything, I promise. So it's really hard because I want to take those stories, Frank, and you should be, and we should be celebrating these things even now, because I think we all need those good news stories that are coming out. And, you watch the news and they're pounding us full of dread every single day, which is their job. Sometimes, but there's the odd good news story that comes out that just makes you feel a little bit better about what's going on. So I think, and I want to, and I'm going to explore a lot of that stuff. So bear with me. Going back to sales opportunities. Now, I want to be careful here because this is not the right time to be calling everybody and trying to sell stuff. And you heard that loud and clear from the MSPs in regards to vendors, right? And the first thing that my sales team at Datto did worldwide was like, well, what do we do? And we kind of took a step back. I made a number of phone calls to MSPs like yourself and said, what's going on? Give me kind of a pulse of what's going on with your business. And you're like, I appreciate you calling. My hair's on fire right now. I don't need you offering me free products or discounts or, come to this webinar about this or this or this. Because it's really hard. You want to keep your business going. You want to keep, that going. So the message we sent out to our sales staff was call your MSPs and say, what do you need? And if they say nothing, leave them alone. If they say, I need this, then let's go and find that. But this is the time for us to be partners, not the time for us to take advantage of a situation or try to sell more stuff. Just literally, what do you need right now? And I think that's the message that we're going to continue probably for the next number of months, which is, what can we do to get through this together, honestly? So from a sales perspective, to go back, I'm again looking at the silver lining. What are the opportunities here? I think that we could easily change the business continuity conversation, which we in the backup space have kind of taken and kind of said, when people say business continuity, they're thinking about backup, disaster recovery, and data protection, that continuity strategy. I think we can now need to, as a channel, take that business continuity conversation and expand it into, what do we do in any scenario, disaster scenario, pandemic scenario, any scenario? What is your business continuity plan? I think MSPs more so now are positioned to be consultative with their end users than ever before, and more so than just looked at as the guy who can get me laptops, or this isn't working, call this guy. You know, I think that and we've been doing this for years, being that consultative technology person to help your business, doing things like eliminating downtime and protecting yourself from data loss, as well as, you know, dark web and all that stuff. So this just kind of adds to that whole, what can we do in order to make sure that your business is up and going all the time in technology, and how it fits in on those different things. So I think that's a good news story. The other big thing that I'm seeing right now is the ones that are really caught with the pants down right now are the businesses that didn't have MSPs. And I'm talking about the mid-market, crouching into the large market that kind of had in-house IT teams. And if you look at the mobilization of small, medium businesses that work with an MSP, they had access to equipment, they had access to individuals, and pretty much were able to adjust and shift and set up right away. Whereas those businesses that didn't have an MSP were slower and are still struggling with it. Not only that, but they were reaching out to MSPs. I don't know if you saw any new business coming out of it, but they were reaching out to MSPs going, I'm stuck, what can you do? But of course, as MSPs, you're going to take care of your existing customers first, and then I'll come to you, the new prospect that's calling in, or the guy who I've been trying to sell to on a recurring revenue contract for a year, who has said no to me at every turn. Now, all of a sudden you're interested. I will get to you after I take care of these people first. So I think, and we've been doing a lot leading up to this, and talking about co-managed IT, basically recurring revenue contracts with end users that have in-house IT teams rather than the 100% complete outsource. This is a massive opportunity, I think, for managed services, where post-pandemic, assuming this could happen again, what's your plan? And I think the MSPs are the ones that are best prepared to have that conversation, both from a speed, product sourcing, experience, service level, throat to choke, consultative, price efficient, experience, security. Like, I think we're in the best position to be able to help those organizations. So I think that there's going to be a big, and that whole push towards co-managed, where ultimately in a few years we see more and more larger businesses outsourcing IT. I think we just hit the gas pedal on that, and I think that's going to happen a lot faster than what the initial predictions were.
Yep, I agree 100%. It's interesting. I'll put my MSP hat on for a second again. I was watching some of my peers try to figure out what the marketing message is, right? I mean, we've been told, hey, you need to market through this. But, you know, we all know, like, the hard sell is this isn't the time. We know being quiet in the background maybe is a hard time. Like, where's the balance? I did see some of my peers, you know, on Facebook saying, hey, you know, we're here to help all businesses. Like, anybody needs it, you know, we'll help you. And I actually took a different approach with my clients. I wrote them a personal email from me. I sent it out. And I basically, I wanted to reiterate what we had there. I said, hey, you know, like, our platform, you know, we're heavily invested in cloud. But I said, you know, our platform was designed for this, right? It was designed for any scenario that requires any kind of business continuity, disaster recovery. And it's working for you. We're proud to have you as our client. But I told them straight up, I said, we're not actively soliciting new business right now. I said, our sole focus, we mobilized a week before the governor of New Jersey told us to. I kind of wanted to be prepared. I said, our sole focus is on you right now. We know you're stressed. We know that, you know, you've got employees that haven't worked from home, working from home, and we're committed to that. And I got more responses back from that, just saying thanks. Like, they appreciate it. And I felt like it was the right message. Now, you know, contrary to that, we did onboard one new client. We had one that was in the pipeline that was dragging their feet and decided, crap, we should have said yes 3 months ago. And we onboarded them. They were a good fit for us, and I liked them, so I wanted to help them. But we made a conscious decision, like today now, we were going to actively go out there. We reskinned our website slightly just so we weren't tone deaf to what's going on right now. But I think that, like to your point, we want to just be helpful to existing clients, and we know there's going to be some opportunities. I do agree. I think co-managed IT is going to be a good opportunity. I think that another opportunity is going to be clients of some of those MSPs, which you said will probably go out of business, right? I mean, I think that one of the challenges you face in a sales capacity is MSPs selling clients what they want and not what they need, right? Yeah. That has to do with price. And I think that was the number one reason I found from a cloud perspective, right, is why people wouldn't buy, because the price point was high, right? You were selling them something that at the time they couldn't grasp whatever happened. Like you said, like who would think we'd be in this? Like, even if you sold them a vision of like, what if we have a pandemic? People laugh at you, you know, a month ago. Yeah. And, you know, my story and my journey was, you know, about 8 years ago now, I kind of saw this cloud thing coming, and I said, I'm not going to be the last MSP trying to sell servers, right, and go out of business. So I want to stay relevant, right? There's always new shiny stuff. Cloud was shiny at the time, but I really said, hey, that's the future. Like you, I said, you know what, we've been kind of doing it anyway. We just didn't call it like cloud and have the cute term. Yeah. And when I set out I partnered with OS33. I'm still with them. It's been a good relationship for me, and it's worked well. But Hurricane Sandy hit, right? So I don't know how that affected you, but like that literally went like right over our roof of our office and house, right? Monmouth County, Central New Jersey, it literally went straight across that, right? And up until that point, you know, clients couldn't wrap their heads around, what if you have no power for 10 to 14 days, right? And my managed services plan, which included BDRs, by the way, and I wasn't with Datto at the time. I was with a different vendor, but we didn't have the ability to spin up in the cloud. I was with one of those vendors that said you could spin up in the cloud, but guess what? Not everybody could spin up in the cloud, and it didn't work, right? Yeah. And so it was like, I sold life insurance to you, but you know, just don't die on a Thursday, and you happen to die on a Thursday, didn't work, right? So the plan was not 100%. So I had to immediately change what my offering was. And I had a pretty easy time upselling a lot of those clients who had just been through this. You know, that short-term memory is good, and they're like, we need to be in the cloud like yesterday. But here's where I hit the wall and I had a problem, was when I was trying to sell prospects, right? And I'm going to them and I'm saying, hey, you're spending, you know, $3,000 a month. You should spend $4,000 with me. And I had a tough time explaining all that value. And that was actually when I created audIT, because I got sick and tired. I said, you know, there's got to be an easier way to sell these SMBs what they need. Yeah. Because they're only buying what they understand and what they think they want. And if you only do that, when you end up in a situation like this, then your client comes back to you and says, like, what the hell? And it's hard to say, well, remember I tried to sell you that BCDR, you know, solution 2 years ago. You didn't want to pay for it, or you didn't want. They don't remember that. All they know is right now there's pain. So I think there's an opportunity, one, for MSPs to save those relationships by selling what they need, not what they want. And we know people are going to be shifting around, right? SMBs are going to be looking. So I think that some MSPs are going to pick up the business of other MSPs that couldn't quite make it. And then I think co-manage is a huge opportunity out there. That's a great point about those mid-market or mid-sized businesses that had internal IT, and then working from home is like, you know, like a complete rat race to get that done. So we were doing a there's kind of this deck that I've been doing the last couple of years. It's kind of like a little bit of a thought leadership. It was basically, what does an MSP look like in 5 years? And what are the things we need to be thinking about? And believe it or not, one of the items was a work from home strategy. And I was doing it from the angle that office, like brick and mortar offices are closing, trying to find good talent in your region. Like a lot of businesses are now have remote employees, but the remote employee experience working from home is completely different than that of working from an office. In an office, you've got a controlled environment, you've got good technology, good security, all those, you know, wonderful things. And then at home, it's like, just go to Best Buy and buy a router
plug it in, and then we'll figure it out. So I was doing it more as an angle for opportunities for MSPs. Interesting, but from a resonating perspective, try going to your end users and saying, we want to treat your home users or those that have the ability to work from an office as well as home as an additional user, and therefore charge you more. It was kind of falling on deaf ears. So whenever I had a shorter presentation to do, that would be the piece that I would chop out. Meanwhile, 2 years later, we're all sitting at home and everybody's trying to figure out the work from home strategy. I look like a freaking genius now, right? by thinking about this 2 years ago, even though this was not the scenario that we had planned. But now it's going to be the first thing that we're going to talk about as time goes on. So I think the sales has shifted, and I love what you're saying about shifting it away from what they think they need versus what they actually need, and us being able to go in there. And when I say us, I mean the channel as a whole, going in there as true consultants to go, no, this is what you need. And if this ever happens again in whatever way it looks, whether it's a hurricane coming through New Jersey or a worldwide pandemic, these are the things that we need to figure out.
Yep. I'll tell you a funny story, because Mike and I were down at the ID Agent Roadshow about a month ago, I guess, in Houston. It was one of those trips where I was like, should I go or should I not go? And we decided to man up, and we went. And
it was a couple days before everything shut down.
Yeah. I landed, and people were turning on their phones, and they're like, "Oh my God, Tom Hanks has coronavirus." And I was like, "What? Like, if he could get it, like, any of us could get it. All of a sudden it became real." Yeah. So, but I'm sitting there. It was a smaller event. Obviously, it was impacted, and we had Huntress was the table over next to me, and as an MSP. That has been a product I wanted to roll out. So, I waved the guy over, how the vendors kind of all hang together. And I said, look, I own an MSP. I want to use your product. And I'm concerned because a lot of my clients are going to end up at home working, right? And like, to your point, there's this increased risk. And I was afraid. So anyway, within like 2 hours, he had me set up with a trial, and I rolled it out. And Mike asked me, he said, what happened? And I said, well, I rolled it out to all my clients, and I actually just added it right to their monthly bill, the managed workstation. I added a couple dollars to it. And he was quizzing me on the concept. And I said, because of how I use audIT, how I've cultured my clients, that those red boxes are bad and green boxes are good. The clients have gotten used to that idea that they don't want me to wait till there's a problem and say, well, that was what that red box was. Hey, would you like to spend an extra $20 for a month to be protected? They want to know that as an advisor. I said, listen, I took the proactive step. I added $20 a month, but we've now plugged this pretty big hole, this whole work from home type of thing. So I think that some of the sales is the mentality here. We're kind of like help the client first right now mentality, and let's do what's going to keep them the safest. But Mike was quizzing me on that. He's like, whatever happened? Because he figured I just gave up because we were quarantined and sales stopped. I said, no, I rolled that out to my clients. I want them to be protected. And yeah, it cost them a couple extra dollars, but it's worth it for me to protect them. Even if they ask me, hey, why did my bill take up a couple bucks? I say, because I'm protecting you. And I think that that needs to be taught, I believe, from a sales perspective. Question from you, from a vendor perspective. I think that I'm guessing sales is one of the more difficult challenges, right? To get the MSPs like Two River Tech to move more of your product. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, you have great products, but what about the sales piece of it? Like, what do you see?
Yeah, it's kind of yes and no at this particular point. It's a strange world because, again, like it's funny. So the first couple of days, we're still at the stage of, is this a hoax? Is this real? How serious is this? Is it the common flu? Are we going to be back to work in 2 weeks? Are we going to, because initially I think like the quarantine period here in Connecticut, I think was only going to be like a week. I think it was the start, and then a week turned into 2, and then 2's turned into 4 now. And there's still no end. And when are the kids going to go back to school and all that stuff? So you start, worrying a little bit about sales, and everybody's worried. I think a little bit. You have to worry about that. We got to keep afloat, right? And we got to keep the machine moving, and we got to keep our people paid and our mortgages and everything like that. So, there's this whole sensitivity about when do I call my end users and start asking about upselling and buying more stuff. And same for us working with MSPs. The initial thought coming out of the vendor community was, hey, we have a bunch of MSPs that are sitting at home bored now. Maybe they'll sit through a 2-hour presentation to talk about moving from one PSA to our PSA. And it's like, immediately when you start having a conversation with even just a handful of MSPs, you realize that was not the case, right? Nobody is sitting at home bored thinking this is a good time to start looking for a new tool or add something to the stack. So I think there's a lot of belt tightening that needs to happen. I worry a little bit about some of the MSPs, but I worry a little bit about some of the vendors that are out there that have been. We're in golden age, and this golden age has just kind of flipped or kind of been pressed pause on relatively quickly there. So I know there was a lot of people spending a lot of money. I know a few MSPs that just bought new buildings that they were planning on expanding into. There's a lot of people bringing on new staff. Like, a month ago, we were all looking for techs, to bring on board. Now, all of a sudden you're thinking, well, do we need these people? Can we keep these people, kind of stuff? So in my mind, it's a little too early to say. We actually had a very, very good month. I think it was a combination of additional need, and there was a lot of end users, I think, that were saying no to certain things. Then this hit, now all of a sudden they're saying yes because of the preparedness. And those were around security. Things like RMM and SaaS backup all of a sudden became wildly popular because they were trying to sell these things, and end users, again, were just saying no, but now all of a sudden understand, well, this is what you've been talking about if this happens. So, we've been fortunate that sales has kind of been growing on its own without us being aggressive as we normally are. The phone outs to our partners to go, what do you need? There are a lot that actually still, so we've moved everything. We used to do road shows where we'd go around. I know you guys participated in a lot of those things where we'd go around city to city, similar to the one that you were talking about that you were at. Well, now all of a sudden we can't do that. So we changed them to virtual. I'm actually getting more people showing up at these virtual road shows, webinars than we did showing up in person. So there is an appetite still out there and I make no apologies about it when I say, look, if you're looking for COVID help or information around that, then this is not the webinar for you. This is literally, we're going to review Datto product and we're going to do a demo of this product. And I apologize if you got here not expecting that, but this is a sales pitch. Enjoy. And people hang out and they stay through it. And they're coming, dozens and dozens and dozens to each of these webinars. We had another one just a couple hours ago where I had close to 60 Canadian MSPs on the phone. So, people are still out there, seem to be still doing business or still interested. I think, we're very fortunate from that perspective, but I think, taking your foot off the gas a little bit, changing the message a little bit to say, I'm here for you. What do you need? What do you need? What do you need is going to turn into sales opportunities. And then once everything returns back to normal, I think then we can go back to more aggressive techniques and the more aggressive techniques that we've been using. It's just a matter of how long does that last before we see, are we going to survive that? Like, do you have enough cash to be able to get through that for, if it's a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year, that kind of idea. That's when you start thinking a little bit more about it. But it's tough, man. It's tough right now. And every day I'm learning new things. I will share with you that one of the things that I'm working on is, how does our product help MSPs through this time? Meaning, how are MSPs going out there and winning business when it comes to, say, RMM? What are they saying to their end users that is making their end users go, yeah, you're right, I do need that right now, and I'm willing to pay for that right now. Right. So, basically I leverage my partner base where all of a sudden I'll see like this one MSP starting to sell a lot more RMM, and then I'll call them and go, what are you doing? And they'll say, yeah, well, this and this and this. And because of the pandemic, I was able to say this and this and this. So we're actually working on sales tips to help MSPs position stuff through this, understanding it's not business as usual. It's pandemic time. work from home time and basically getting best practices of what the growing MSPs are saying right now. And there are MSPs that are growing through this. There are MSPs that are wildly busy through this. Some MSPs are talking about laying off staff. Other MSPs are still trying to find staff. So it's this almost like balance as opposed to kind of like devastation everywhere. It's more of a reshuffling around of stuff.
Yep. That's awesome. Frank, I'm sorry, did I interrupt?
No, sorry. I was saying it's awesome and scary all at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Frank, do you have anything else to add before I want to ask one final question before we?
No, I mean, Rob's spot on. I mean, as always, you know, from a consummate salesperson who has a great pulse on the channel, Rob, you're well respected. I know in like every forum I see some other vendors take some lumps, and you know, you're a consummate gentleman on there. I mean, people have nothing but great things to say. We really do appreciate you spending the time with us today, because we really value your opinion, and you know, it's important to us to
I appreciate that. Yeah, as vendors, we got to have big shoulders, so just like you do with your end user sometimes. So
yeah, I got a ton of notes, and we could talk to you for the rest of the day. You know, could keep talking to you. And by the way, just to show
I noticed
you
that.
what I stole, I steal one of these from your booth every time on the road. I'm going to run out of Datto pens now.
You know, if you got a second, the Datto pen story, that particular one, it's an interesting one. Those, if you remember Intronus, which is now Barracuda, which is a backup company, back in 2011, they used that style of pen, black pen, Intronus logo. I loved them so much that Neil Bradbury like shipped me a box of Intronus pens when I was at Level Platforms. I moved over to Datto and I brought my Intronus pens over with me. And I'm in a meeting with Austin McCord, the founder of Datto, the CEO. And I'm using an Intronus pen, and he goes, "What the hell is that?" I'm like, "Dude, these pens are amazing. I love these pens." And he goes, "Who owns the pen budget around here?" And it turns out it was in my department. And he goes, "Just go find that style, but put a Datto logo on it." So those pens I actually stole from Intronus way back in the day. So
well, guess what we did?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know where this is going. Listen to this story. Go ahead.
If you happen to have get your hands on an audIT pen.
Yeah,
we have audIT pens that are exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
But Rob, the reason why that happened was I'm at an audit booth with Mike, and I go, "Why do we have Datto pens all over our table?" Right? Like I'm like, "Are we?" And he's like, "These are the best pens," and we ran out of pens. Like people want to sign up, and we have no way for them to sign up. So I don't know. He must have convinced the Datto rep, you know, to give us a bunch of pens.
Nice.
Oh yeah, I would grab like, you know, I'd walk by Sly each, you know, like I'd walk by the Datto booth, grab 3 pens.
Whichever manufacturer came up with that style of pen, they're like making gazillion dollars right now from the IT space. That's for sure.
Oh, they're the best. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Rob. If you want to, you know, plug Datto a little bit, tell folks where I mean, everybody knows where they can find you, datto.com right on the pen, but if you have anything special you want to share about Datto, please do.
Yeah, you know, and again, I'm not going to do a sales pitch because the timing's wrong to do that, but we have a ton of resources that we've been investing in. Again, like my job, and I've got a phenomenal team of people around me that basically are the face and own the community relationship with the MSPs. We reached out to our MSP base and said, "What do you need?" And we got a ton of feedback. I just finished a webinar on Monday, which was basically we hired an accounting firm out of New Jersey to talk about the SBA loans and how MSPs can go and apply for these things and some of the nuances to the rules. What can they expect? Because a lot of MSPs don't necessarily have accountants or even the banks willing to help them right now. So, you know, those are the types of things that I'm trying to do as opposed to talking about us and our products. We're trying to figure out what we can do to get our partners through this. I think the other important thing too is, you know, there's a couple of vendors that have kind of made grandiose statements about investing in the channel and made big dollar amount commitments and all that, which tends to be a little bit more than fluff. But one of the things that we are doing, and we're not patting ourselves on the back, because in these times, like for me to stand up and go, "Hey, we're going to give X amount of millions of dollars to the community," I think is a crappy thing to do, because all I'm doing is pulling attention on myself as opposed to putting attention back onto the MSP. So all the stuff I'm trying to do right now is what can I do to help MSPs through this situation? By no means does that mean that we're not helping out our partners. Our message has been quite simple. If you need help, whether it's selling more stuff, whether it's negotiating with your partners, your end users, whether it's end users that are canceling and you're stuck holding the bag, talk to your account manager. We have the ability and the training now to go through any scenario and situation that you're going through. And I think that's something you should do with all of your vendors is if you're struggling through this time, we want to retain and we want to keep as many MSPs in the market as we possibly can. And if you're struggling, ask for help. Don't hesitate. And that includes us. Like if you're a Datto partner, reach out and have a conversation with your Datto rep. Reach out to me. I'm super happy to get involved. And when we say we're all in this together, we're legitimately all in this together. And there will be a bright side to this. And one day we'll all be sitting in a bar, drooling on each other again, laughing about this and talking about our COVID days. I look forward to that day, and I want to keep as many people that were there yesterday in that bar when we're all finished this. So let us know what we can do.
Thanks again, Rob.
Awesome.
And thank you guys both. I'll give you a quick cheers because this has been, you know, I do a lot of these and this has been the easiest one where I got to kind of just sit back and sip a beer and
I'd like to talk.